they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.
Thank you, folks, for joining me today, and you're on the Ultra MK podcast, episode 2. We're so excited to be able to bring on some new people and fighters that have been in the digital space and different rallies and places in the country that are helping to spread truth and awareness to what's been going on in the world. And today I'm being joined by a very, very, very cool guest who goes by the name of Don Q. And he has a few handles that you'll be able to check out in the drop down below if you wanted to follow him beyond this interview. But I'm just super stoked to have you on today, Don. How you doing, man?
Doing great, doing great. Thank you so much, and congratulations on this. I love it. I love the show already. Doing great stuff.
Thanks, bro. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I just, I felt God wanted me to kind of do something, right? Because he's been placing me in situations, especially since, I fell into helping a woman run for US Senate in California and all the connections that were made from that. Now he's asked me to help rescue children from sex trafficking and getting involved with Piece of Heaven. And I've been sharing some stuff with you and seeing, really kind of what's been going on, sharing that with you. But it's just amazing how God can use people who you would never think, he would want to trust with any kind of a mantle to carry on some information or a purpose to do something that will help mankind. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. And I think there's a revival happening right now, and a lot of God's children are waking up. And yes, we're a little behind the clock. The starting gun's already fired off for a lot of us, but waking up and seeing the terrain now, there's a call to arms. There's people that are stepping up in any fields they come from, any walks of life, and they're starting, like I said, it's this revival back to God, back to Jesus Christ. And it's amazing to see on a grand level. You see it on the big level with the large influencers, but it trickles down, all the way down to conversations I've had, with field workers or tractor drivers. It's just everybody's feeling it. Everybody's, we're going through this transition right now, and I think it's a beautiful thing. It's growing pains we're going through. We're seeing some hard, bumpy roads, but we're growing, and the growth is there, and it's measurable, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah, dude, it's exciting times. It's like when you're rooted in truth and you know what's going on, it clicks in your mind and in your soul that like we're living through history.
Yes.
And for those that are, down on their luck right now, or you're having a lot of drama in your life and it's hard for you to see this, like we want to pray for you because there's amazing, beautiful things that are happening amongst the chaos. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be in this fight with you, bro. And let's just talk a little bit about the kind of work that you've been doing, and especially, in the digital space, because, we're involved in 5G warfare, which is information warfare. And that's how I was able to connect with you originally. But just, I think right before, maybe just as, C-19 was locking down the world and was released from Wuhan, China. So what really motivated you to become more active online, Don? And when were you awakened to the reality of what we were involved in with humanity versus the global agenda?
So the awakening, I think, much like a lot of us, was really early for me. If I can go back to a 9/11 2001, I would think it was somewhere around there where you started to see things with your eyes that didn't justify what you were hearing with your ears, a narrative that was being put out that just didn't resonate right with you. There was something amiss, and we all came from that deep programming of, to the Coliseum, entertainment for the masses. I was guilty as charged. My dad and me, having football barbecues every Sunday that turned into Thursdays. Just you saw this manifestation of entertainment, but you knew something was happening on the backside. You knew we were being robbed, and talents and gifts and amazing people among us were being stripped away from us. But we were so happily entertained. We were so caught in the entertainment that we couldn't see anything else. And that slow transition out of it, as painful as it was, especially, like I said, if you woke up in 2001, if you use that as a marker, from 2001 to 2015 was just chaotic. There was just so much happening on so many levels that would cause, the normal person that was awake or paying attention to these things to just be, so caught up in fear and uncertainty of what the future holds. We were hearing the echoes of the New World Order from, channels like Alex Jones that were one of the few, kind of first alternative media conspiracy channels. So we started to hear this echo of this tidal wave coming in. It just, you could see the transition happening, but then all of a sudden, and maybe we'll use, the C-19 marker as kind of a pop moment where it almost seemed like if we want to say the devil outplayed his hand, somebody overplayed their hand to where all of a sudden there was a mass awakening. There was a pop in society that we hadn't seen before. Like I said, you could stay plugged into all these different rabbit holes, go down all these different conspiracy theories, but you couldn't really nail down. And then when C-19 came and you could really see how the trap door was closing, how that pin was about to, or excuse me, that door was about to close on the pin. You could see a transition happening, but simultaneously you could see a change in our brothers and sisters. You can see something turn on, an awakening happening where now it wasn't going to, we weren't going to just take the entertainment and blindly go sit on our couches and consume our sugar, salt, fat. There was something else amiss. There was mothers getting upset. There was parents, fathers stepping forward at school board meetings, at the Supreme, at the supervisor meetings in your local counties. There was a shift happening. And if you didn't grab onto it, if you didn't see it, if you didn't really pay attention to it, you wouldn't realize how far we've come, even in this moment right now, Matt, where, just like you said, we can go through the chaos, we can go through all of these events and things, and you can live in the doom and gloom, you can think the dark side, the dark end is coming. But if you step back and give that 30,000 degree view and really observe where we've come from, the deception, the lies that we lived, what we were giving our energy and our life source to, these false idols, to where we are now, it's a dramatic shift. There's now millions and millions of people that have gone through what we like to refer to as an awakening, but really all that is just a realization that there's something amiss here. There's a group of people, however you want to illustrate them, whatever you want to call them, that has a nefarious plan in play to make sure that humanity never reaches that higher level of consciousness. We never understand what we truly were sent here for, what our missions, whatever that may be, whatever you may believe, because again, you and I are brothers in Christ, but there's a lot of people that are still on their spiritual journey, and they will find their way as long as you and I and all of our brothers and sisters continue to do our job, continue to hear that call that God puts on our hearts. The message will get out and consciousness will continue to rise. And again, I know I'm going long, but just from that 30,000 degree view, again, maybe this is more for the black pillars and doomers out there, but the upward momentum that society as a whole has been going on a global scale is something that would, if you could see where we started to where we are now, a lot of people would be at a loss of words. You'd be standing there with your mouth open at just how amazing this shift has happened. So my awakening happened a long time ago, but realizing where the narrative, where the fight was in this narrative. So again, much like we illustrate with C-19, protecting our brothers and sisters from false information, that false narrative always put out on mainstream media. It was the regular blue collar mom and pops, the brothers and sisters, our friends and family out here that saw something different and put a different narrative out, put different information out, put that doctor that was suppressed or got his license suspended, put his information out for millions and millions of more people to be able to ingest, understand, decipher for themselves, and realize that something was amiss. So waking up is one thing, but continuing to fight against this evil narrative, I think, is what a lot of us have transitioned to. We understand that we're not going to, God has not promised us, green pastures and just a simple, easy earth for us to just, live the rest of our mundane lives. This is going to be a battle. We came to be tested, and now to see our brothers and sisters waking up in this moment and understanding that the evil narrative is an important thing to fight against, I think it's just it's amazing. I'm along with the journey just like everybody else, and recognizing that we have a lot of power against this narrative that they have spun for the masses, and we didn't know we possessed it. We didn't know that we had this power. We didn't know that coming on these social medias, doing these podcasts, sharing our perspective and what we feel as fathers, husbands, brothers, and sisters out here would really resonate with millions of other people and give them the strength, the wind in their sail, if you will, to carry them through that rough waters that we're going through right now. And
Yeah.
it's amazing to see. It's amazing. It's amazing to be here right now. But yeah, that's been my journey. And one thing that I'm holding on dear is the power we have to shift the narrative is just absolutely amazing right now.
No, it really is. I had a guest on, a good friend of mine, last night, and he really related because he's read the Bible, front and back, and but he's
Wow.
really good at relating it to real time events. And he said that, Matt, it's almost like humanity and the good people are in that Red Sea moment right now, where Trump is almost like a Moses type character, and he's trying to lead the Jews away from Pharaoh and away from the Babylonian system, and they really have to, put trust in a way out from the bondage. And it really is. It's a spiritual war that if you're still stuck in the old matrix, if you're still stuck in those old things, I think God's going to do something in your life to where you're gonna see life through a different lens, and at some point you'll have to make a decision of, do I need to get right with myself, and in doing so, how can I use myself and my ability to do something that's bigger than me, right? And I think that's where you fit, and I think that's where I fit. And no, it's just amazing times to be living in. So yeah, and going back, dude, if you go back in the time and the way back machine, and even in 2016, when all of the mainstream lies were pouring through the TeLIEvision and telling us that Hillary Clinton was going to win in a landslide because the pollsters say so, and they were gaslighting us so bad. And then, here comes Trump pulling an upset victory in the middle of the night, whether you liked him at that point or not. I mean, he was spunky back then. I mean, he was saying controversial things that sometimes people had a hard time swallowing, his personality and his character flaws and stuff. But I mean, at least for me, I knew he was going to be a better alternative than Hillary Clinton. And even back then, I didn't realize, exactly who she really was and how nefarious, she is, and the Clinton family in general. And so it was just amazing how through the digital space, people like you were able to use things like a meme or a post, almost like it's like a virtual bullet in a battlefield, right? And it really penetrated the psychological perception of the public. And I've even seen some pundits say that, because of the meme wars, that was a really big reason why President Trump was able to win in his first term. So, I mean,
And
what?
well, I'm glad you illustrated that. I don't mean to interject, cut you off or anything, but I've literally had this conversation with my brother-in-law a few days ago. It's absolutely amazing, and isn't it? It almost seems like it's a common link between stories and myths and everything we've heard, history, whatever you want to talk about the stories we've heard, but that Achilles heel, right? Just we always paint evil as this giant monster, this hill that's unclimbable. How are we going to face the forces, of darkness that we're up against? How are we going to? And it was something as simple as a meme. It was something as simple as just interjecting yourself into that narrative, and you were just as big as the boogeyman. You were just as tall as that mountain. You could conquer it at any time. God gave us that ability and that strength. That it's I laugh about this. I don't believe whether we what we want to believe in the conspiracy world of who created the internet and social media and all this stuff, but I promise you, they did not plan on God's children stepping up to the plate and taking it to them full force on these channels. They thought they were going to get their programming untethered, every time you were driving somewhere or you were in the restroom, they were still going to indoctrinate you. It wasn't just that TeLIEvision that they were going to get you through. They thought these devices were going to get us. And for a lot of brothers and sisters, it did, and they still fall victim to it. But God's children stepped up and came to these platforms and started changing the narrative, started putting out truth and facts. When you put out truth and facts, when you put out information that is based on that, the lies, the misinformation, the deception cannot even step up to the plate. They can't even hold water compared, and people get to see that for themselves. Our brothers and sisters get to see that that's what the most important thing is right now. And again, just piggybacking on what you're saying, it's so amazing that God gave us such an ability on the battlefield that we just didn't know we possessed. We, at the beginning of social media and YouTube and all this, it was, there wasn't a lot of substance. There wasn't a lot of, just individuals coming on here and giving their perspective about a story. We were still letting the Dan Rathers, and the mainstream media get the start, middle, and conclusion to every single story or narrative in our life. We were starting to get a different perspective from, the Phils, the Dons, the Matts, everybody that was willing to speak their mind or give a perspective or a different point of view of what was happening, started to change the narrative. And it's amazing to see that the whole time we had a silver bullet in the gun and we didn't even know it. And it was something as easy as memes, it's just
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, it's awesome. It's like it's the whole anon concept, right? It's almost like
Yes.
it's like God activated us at some part of the timeline and equipped us with the right vessel in order to disseminate truth from false narrative. And then, so anytime anything happens now, it's like if people already have their senses heightened that it could be BS, that all you got to do is like within a matter of minutes, open up a Telegram, open up X, open up Rumble, and you already have the people who know how to decode, how to know how, like remember the recent um, uh, Jeff Bezos wiener rocket shot up into the sky with all the girls pretending like they're going to space, and it was a big DEI commercial. It's like, dude, within minutes, they were like, the Anons roasted them because they were like, okay, if you're going to shoot a capsule, into the ether, just before space, before you reach, outer space, you can't have a door that opens inward, right? And so all these things that mechanics and their own science, their trust the science gets used against them to point out all their lies. And so, dude, it's so great that we have the ability to break down the veil, to rip down the veil.
Yes. No, and you're 100% right. I'm glad that you're pointing out the AI angle. I think in evil overplaying its hand, and we can point to some different times in the timeline where they definitely did, and it caused a different shift in the masses programming. Uh, but I think it's a telltale sign that they've had to turn to AI so fast to continue a narrative, continue a lie and deception, because they don't have the players anymore. They don't have the actors. We've seen the paid players and actors they have get recycled and reused, and you've seen the mom at 4 different quote unquote event. We've seen that with our own eyes. So that to me is a telltale sign that the enemy is in defeat, because it's having to turn now to AI that isn't ready, isn't integrated. We haven't bought into the holograms. We're able to see through some things, especially the CGI AI videos. And I think evil having to turn to it and use it before it was ready, before the masses were programmed to understand it, I think it's a sign that, again, we're kicking butt out here in the battlefield. And I love it. I love seeing that, because you are 100% correct. I mean, even from the benzo, space commercial to everything else, people are able to see, wait a minute, are you trying to sell this as truth? Are you trying to tell us that this really happened? Because if you are, I got this list of questions for you to answer. And if you can't answer them, you're selling us, some snake
A
oil
bill
here.
of
And
goods.
I think that's pretty awesome. I think that's really cool to see. It's much like I share with my wife. I get emotional when I go into a Walmart or a grocery store and I start walking down the aisles, and I'll just kind of glance as I'm walking down the main aisle to the little side aisles, and I'll start to see moms, dads, and I'm starting to even see younger kids now picking up boxes and reading that ingredients list.
Yes.
That right there is a marker, ladies and gentlemen, the programming, that something's happening up here, that we're not just going to take that label, that cute brand, that little picture on the box, and just put it in our cart like we used to before. We're starting to care what we're putting in our body, because we realize what we put in is what comes out, and we want to protect this baby. And it's a little thing to see, but these little markers are very important to pay attention to in this timeline, or rather in this battle against evil that we're in, because evil has the speakers, it has the mainstream media, it has everywhere to broadcast its victories and make you think that we're in defeat every single day. But if you slow down and look, these little subtle things, something as easy as somebody reading an ingredients box in Walmart, are markers that we're moving to a better consciousness. We're understanding our reality a little bit better, and I'll take it all day long. I'll take it.
Amen. Yeah, me too, man. Me too. You know, it was really, really cool the way that the MAGA tribe and the Maha tribe were able to come together as a family, because really it's the American political model that divides people, right? So the whole Republican versus Democrat nonsense, when the whole time they're doing deals behind closed doors that have none of our best interests in mind. Right. So how are you feeling about the progress that's being made so far with the deck of cards that they're being dealt with the RFK and Maha? Because I know that nutrition means a lot to you and your family and stuff like that. So how do you feel that, you know, these first 100+ days are going with RFK and what they're doing?
I'm going to give a different response than I think a lot of people would. I think it's absolutely amazing. Again, because of my conditioning and the programming that I've gone through, or rather the things that I've seen, evil loves the long game. Evil loves to stretch things out, take things out further, because it knows that it can fill gap in memory with entertainment or the next big event or whatever it wants to do to keep us moving along its timeline. The facts right now where RFK has done so much already, where are we at 150 days or under 150
Yep.
days, I believe.
Yep.
There's already been
150.
so much done, but not, again, the pillars that have been put in place by very, very evil people, and the booby traps, if you will, throughout government and the different agencies. It's going to take a while to dismantle that monster. It was always the American populace, it was always the consumer, it was always our brothers and sisters out here that needed to get the message, because once we get the message on the ground floor, we will demand the change up at the top. So I think already with what has happened, already with what people are talking about, whether you talk about the medical industry with vaccines and different things there, or we move into food with the dyes and the different preservatives, this is all in a positive realm, because again, we lived through evil, we lived through the programming, we lived through, the presidencies where none of this stuff was ever addressed. It was always on to the next boogeyman or the next big event, or don't worry about that, we'll take care of it at some time, but let's talk about, it was always, we were always being sold, a bill of goods that wasn't worth what we were paying. Something's happening now where, yes, we're hearing it, yes, we still demand action, but just the people understanding that this was taking place, understanding that companies were unnecessarily putting, toxins, chemicals, dyes in your food that were not necessary. It was all in a sales and marketing gimmick to either entrap children or to get parents to buy it so the kids would stop screaming, and whatever it was. The angle and the consumer base that they were angling or excuse me, promoting these products to, really starts to come to the forefront for parents and even, our friends, family, brothers and sisters that are really starting to understand, hey, wait a minute, this is just supposed to be yogurt. Why is there 60 other ingredients and 5 different food dyes in it? Is that really necessary? And then to see the comparison in another country, whether it be Britain, Spain, Italy, and see that it's, half the size, or most of those ingredients that you had a problem with don't even exist in the other countries. They don't allow them. It really starts to, paint a picture of where we came from. And I think once people realize how bad it was, you know, evil corporate America or any of these conglomerates are going to have a hard time taking us back, because people, once you're aware now, it's hard to shift back. So I love the RFKs. I love the Trumps, keep doing what you're doing. But their message and their fight is completely different from this ground floor, the social media, the aeons, the digital soldiers. We have a complete different job to do, a completely different mission. And it has to do with just spreading the truth that we've come to our conclusion. We've done our research. Doesn't matter what walk of life you've come from. Don't think that you don't have the caliber or credit to speak on certain things. If you've done the research and you've come to a conclusion or connected the dots that could resonate with somebody else, and you get that information out, that's mission forward for me. That's the tip of the hat and a pound of
Yeah.
the heart to the good soldiers, because that's all we can do. Even if some of that information isn't correct, that information is gonna fall to one of our brothers and sisters that might know a little more. Or, hey, let me correct you here, Don. This is how this is done. Just in case you didn't know, make sure this is part of, we that's growth. We need this growth amongst each other. And we know that the higher echelon, or rather, that higher level, they have their own fight going on, and that system had been set up by the evil side a long time ago. They made sure to capture the top, and they kind of disregarded the bottom. They figured we'd all just fall into a slave, mindset, and we would all just follow orders. Now that we've stirred this up, now that God's children are moving, shaking, and breaking the narrative, I think it's 100% on us to continue this mission forward. Even if you're seeing things you don't understand, even if RFK does some things or says some things that just don't resonate in the moment, that doesn't negate the truth that we still have to spread, the information that still has to reach our good brothers and sisters that maybe not have heard it, right? This is a message that's near and dear to the Christ believers. We know this to be true, that you carry this message to prison, to the well, to wherever you go, because there could be one person that needs to hear it, and that one person can change the tide. And if you're the one to deliver it, I mean, we're all about shedding our ego, but tip of the hat to you, baby. That's how it goes. Wear that star with pride, carry that mission forward. And that's what I think we're figuring out with all this, whether it's the Maha or even MAGA, Make America Great Again. The people that brought us these echoes, we appreciate them, and we know they have their fight. But we already know it now. We want a great country for our children. We want healthy food.
Yeah.
We want healthy citizens. We know that this should be commonplace. And now that the masses have it, let the three-letter agencies fight all they want and try to, pass and slide things under the rug. They'll start to be called out more so than ever before, because if it was, 5 or 10,000 before, it's now going to be in the millions moving forward of people that have those filters up. So it's really exciting to see. It's exciting to see.
Yeah, I would say that, to add on to what you're saying, the election victory in last November is just one victory in a battle, but the war is just, it's going. The war is going to be a long time. And, for those who know, like we are at war right now. It's not a kinetic war on our soil, but it's a war for our constitutional republic and for our minds. You're right, Don. And I think that with that being said, I mean, yeah, I'm rocking a Make America Great Again hat, but I don't think that we have to put all of our trust into President Trump and some of the people that are around him right now. We need to hold them accountable because they are our elected officials, right? And so, like, for example, I don't know, I'll send it to you, but there's something that caught my attention in my algorithm yesterday about something in this big, beautiful bill that they're going to be looking at, that they're talking about passing. I'll have to get you the reference number, but it talks about how they're going to replace the Department of Commerce with an AI format, with an AI operating system, an integrated AI operating system with immunity for like 10 years where nobody can do anything about it. And when you start reading some of the verbiage of that, it basically ties into Silicon Valley, and it's making Silicon Valley entrenched in our government and giving their AI bots the means to be able to run our country. So there's some things that we definitely need to be questioning as patriots, and bringing to our representatives, and to say, hey, look, we have to look at this. We cannot be passing things into law that do not serve the will of the people. And AI is too new. It's just like when the jabby jabs came out, and it's like, wait a minute, no one's tested these things, and you're expecting us to roll up our sleeve and just take it just because you're going to hold our job or going to church as blackmail. It's like, this doesn't pass the sniff test, and we've been through a lot already up in this battlefield. Just to start, we're not going to start just laying over and letting people pass laws that are going to hurt us or our kids or our grandkids. And I know AI is coming. You and I both know it's coming, and unfortunately, we're going to have to integrate it into society. But we have to really put guardrails on these kinds of things because, dude, you and I grew up with Terminator, bro. We know how this movie ends.
Yes, exactly. No, and I'm glad that you're pointing out that, because I've heard that from a lot of influencers on our side, a lot of people that are calling into question a lot of things that will happen. And all I want to say to that is thank you. Thank you to everybody on our side that proves everybody on the evil dark side, that called us cult members, that called us blind followers, because this is the marker. These are the times when we question exactly what's happening. Trump, just like you said, Trump isn't our God. We appreciate everything he did. Excuse me. But everything moving forward that raises questions or causes us concern, we're still championing it forward. We're still bringing that narrative forward. We're still saying, hey, great bill, but why is this in there? That to me should let everybody know that we have a lot of good brothers and sisters on our side that are fighting for truth. Truth doesn't come with a certain demographic. It doesn't come with a party alliance. It doesn't
A
come
religion, like,
religion. Exactly,
yeah.
beautifully said. Yes. And
Mhm.
I think that's amazing. I'm glad that you pointed that out, because even moving forward now, where a lot of people think it's mission over, Trump's in, everything's rosy now, we still have a lot of things that we need to voice concern about. And what's I think you'll agree with this, Matt, because we've seen so much now. Yes, we've seen it out of corporate America, and I think it's awesome how much power we hold over them, whether it's the Bud Light stories and everything. But I think it's even true for this administration and different parts of the government. They're watching us very closely at what gets a reaction or what we might be concerned about, what we start to talk about on these channels, especially once it reaches different influencers that reach the masses. I think it really impacts the narrative and kind of allows a shift, or rather, they shift in a certain way. Almost like, hey, if they're not going to care and they're not going to get upset, then we're going to go forward. But if they do, well, okay, maybe we address it now, even if that's a part of the narrative, so to speak. And a lot of people believe that's how, evil gets away with a lot of things, is we agree to it, right? We blindly agree to
Consent,
deception.
blind
Yeah,
consent. Yep.
exactly. Where that's not happening now, even from this administration that we're very happy to have in place. We're super happy we didn't see the Kamala years and everything, right? But we still are going to hold this administration accountable for the truth and facts that we it's not, I hate saying we want to see like it's a group. This is collectively what will benefit everybody. We want what benefits everybody. It's not just
Yeah.
about Second Amendment rights for your patriot. This is across the board.
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful, is we're not the side that we got painted as.
That's
Especially in
right.
2020, we've transitioned to still holding that line of truth and facts. And I think that's another, big, hit to the evil side in moving forward, where they think if
Yeah.
they let COVID go, we would all fall away. If they got Trump
That's
in, we'd
right.
all fall away. We're like, no, we're actually just coming in even more force, because we've now realized how much we can impact the narrative, how much we could help our brothers and sisters. So it's amazing. It's good
Yeah,
stuff.
we've countered a lot of that. And
Yes, yes.
one of these days I'm going to get a hat that says "Make Earth Great Again," because, like, America is that light and beacon on the hill. But for anybody who's watching this in Switzerland or Japan or anywhere else in the world, it's like we're praying for you guys to make your countries great again as well, because
Amen.
it's the globalists versus the people of the planet, right? Like, they don't want sovereign nations. They don't want borders. They don't want sovereign cultures. They want just a one world government. And they've made it quite clear in their agenda with all of their books that they put out, and and all of the propaganda that they've shown us. And, before, when we were, distracted with all of their, bread and circus and wine and circus, they were just planning all this stuff out, years ago. So, and I think that the Biden, the 4 years of the Biden regime was just an exercise for the anons, because all of the nonsense shenanigans was so apparent. They were like teeing up things for us to point out. Like, do you see that guy's neck? Did you see his earlobe? Cocaine in the White House? Like, are you kidding me? Like, trans story hour, and like, it was almost too easy, right? But now it's like the anons have more work to do, and we have to look for the snakes in the grass, even with the current administration. Like, I like, and I really am appreciative of a lot of the people that mean well. But like, just the other day, you had Dan Bongino and Cash Patel straight facing the American public, saying, "Oh yeah, without a doubt, Epstein killed himself. So just leave it at that, and we'll just keep going, move on." It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, we need to, where are you coming up with this evidence, and how are you going to show it? And why are we even having this conversation when you guys should be sitting up here and talking about, who's connected to this guy, right? That's really what we're looking for here. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts with the kind of work that we need to be doing? Because I promised God I would stay in this fight as long as He'll have me here on this green earth. So, what do you think the Anon should be aware of?
You all awareness, and where you take your fight, I think is just kind of what you and I both feel, bro. It's what God puts on your heart. If it's your career path that leads you onto a battle, or if it's certain things that interest you, I think right now it's remembering that the fight isn't so compartmentalized, right? It's not just politics, it's not just about Trump and his administration. We have the medical field, we have the food and water industry, we have construction, we have so many things around us, so many different avenues, and there's still a lot of atrocities happening on every level. I mean, I think I illustrated for you. I come from the big agriculture industry, and that's a very dirty, nasty industry, much like the medical industry. They knew the right way to do things. They had the proper procedures, and then big pharma came in the back door and just started changing the way that the doctors, the scientists, the breeders, everybody started looking at life. They started looking at it through a lens of synthetics and chemicals, and just they forgot the way to go. But that road back to where we need to be is going to be a very hard, painful road. And so whether it's the medical industry, the ag industry like I'm in, so that's something that I've kind of turned my fight onto is, where can I focus my attention? Yes, online, digitally, we can touch all kinds of different conspiracy theories. We can really, kind of butt against the narrative, if you will, the main narrative of the day, whatever the story is. But in real life, we still have to bring that fight, bring that promise to our children of a better tomorrow to reality. And so
Yeah.
that's why I empower each and every one of you. Maybe it's your career path like I've seen. So I'm, like I said, I've been big agriculture, and I've been praying to God to kind of show me why I was put in this industry. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that people don't know that are very rooted in some demonic evil things that I'm fighting against in my digital realm. So how could I forsake them or just turn a blind eye to it in the physical? I still have to bring it in the physical if I want to hold true to my convictions and the character that I possess. So I do, and I am. And I prayed for so long. Why would I be in this industry where it's titans, it's global titans, these seed companies, these chemical companies, these are global entities. The Syngentas, the names we've all heard, these are big, big companies. And I would always pray on why I was in this industry. And one thing for me, just again on my personal journey, my personal career that I've turned inward to kind of focus my attention and bring the fight to, the last 2 years in big agriculture have been eye-opening. And I've left a lot of conferences with just an open mouth where I just couldn't believe what I've heard. Whether it's California going pesticide free in 2 years, or Oregon changing their procedures and growing practices. Just there's so much good things behind the scenes. And yes, don't get it wrong. Just like we're seeing in the financial world and the medical world, the big pharma or the big banks, everybody that's controlled the mechanisms before, they're just racing to fill gap. They're racing to figure out a way to get ahead of what we want. And the same thing in big agriculture. If you don't want them spraying or applying pesticides, they're going to figure out a way to get them into the soil and still make their profit without you knowing what you're consuming. But that's what I mean. There's a fight to be had everywhere. There's information that needs to be brought out to the forefront that a lot of people aren't sharing, that mainstream media will never get wind of, more, or even more so, they can never report on. It's still our job to go into these different realms and avenues and paths that we've been put on, and bring the truth out, bring the information out to our brothers and sisters. So like I said, for me, it was agriculture. If for the next person it's construction, the next person real estate. There's a lot of injustices happening. Kind of like you said, there was a global tentacle that started. There was a global grab, and these things you'd be crazy. I know we talk about the Ian Carrolls and these guys, but these people that take the time to connect those dots down the rabbit hole and show you which companies own which company and who purchased who, and that stuff's very important for people to understand. So again, just for me in my avenue of big agriculture, I'm your eyes and ears, and somebody that'll bring you some truth and information from the ground floor. I'm not a professor. I'm not the guys up on the stage commanding and demanding an audience, but I'm there in the audience. I'm listening and I'm observing, and I've seen a lot of very intriguing conversations that have definitely made me raise my eyebrows and almost start clapping in a room of grown men getting ready to cry because their way of life is going to change. But I'm hearing everything God wanted me to hear on why I'm on this path or why I'm in big agriculture. It's like, okay, Don, you might not like the way it looks right now, but there's a future coming where you do have a place where you are going to be proud and happy of the crops you grow and that you
Yeah.
supply for your nation. We just need to get through that. I have you in place right now to help guide that. Make sure you raise your hand in the conference, ask that hard question, or interject when that professor says something that, XYZ takes this chemical. One thing I want to share with you from a conference that I almost got
Sure.
booed out of the room, but I just want to, help people understand why God has put me in something like big agriculture, and I'm nobody special. But like I said, just make sure to raise your hand when God puts something in your heart. Do it. There was this professor from Cornell up on stage talking about we deal with different airborne viruses, soil-borne diseases in agriculture, right? And big pharma, big chemical, is just trying to stay ahead of that. How can they create something synthetically that they could sell the farmer at 400% markup to combat whatever the virus or disease is, so he can get a crop at the end? Because it's all about just getting the crop and getting cashed out, right? Because you got so much investment in the ground and growing already, you got to get it to market, right? So you'll do anything to do that. Big pharma knows that. That's why they'll roll out all these chemicals. So this professor from Cornell is up there speaking on stage, and he's talking about these airborne spores and how they, having trouble defeating them with chemicals because they're airborne, and they can treat the plants and spray the plants, but again, that's not, it's landing on the plants. It's not, necessarily an airborne chemical like these viruses. So they're talking about the different chemicals used, how this worked, how this didn't, and they're just going down the list of all this big pharma junk. And I'm in the back of the room, and I raise my hand, and he finally brings me the microphone. I ask, I was like, hey, I've seen enough videos online. I'm nobody special, but I've seen that spores, airborne spores, can be destroyed with sound waves. Why aren't we getting little speakers out in the crops, doing a test run and setting them to a certain hertz and at a
Yep.
certain time of day? So say it, because the professor was able to illustrate that in the morning dew, the most spores come in. I was like, so
Sure.
why wouldn't from a certain time and in the morning, say 3 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning, you run a certain hertz over the crop that protects it from these spores? Matt, you should have seen the entire room. First of all, looked at me like I was crazy. And
It's like, yeah,
yeah,
they're like, oh, who brought this hippie in here? Wait a minute, we can't make money on that. What are you talking
exactly,
about?
exactly. But what was so amazing on that, right? So I get that full feeling. I got a simple answer, sit down, get the mic away from that guy. It was the professors and the Cornell people that came to me after the conference that were intrigued by what I said. They didn't want to know more from what I knew, but they were intrigued at the thought. They were like, where have you seen that? And I was like, well, I saw this YouTube video where this group in Switzerland was using it to defeat cancer cells, just trying to give them some stuff that I had gathered from little research or videos that have come into my world. And it was just amazing to see these Cornell professors, these people that have spent their life careers in the pockets of big pharma, seeing a different perspective, knowing that's worthy of experimenting. Why wouldn't we try with some speakers in a field with a certain hertz? And then seeing that, just like you said, seeing that loss of true science, that loss of true curiosity leave their face when they realize, you know what, I actually lose my funding for my program if I do that experiment. If I decided to test with your theory, I could lose my entire fund. That's when you start to see the tentacles that we're dealing with. That's when you
That's
realize
right.
that for me, that was my awe moment, my amen moment, if you will, where I was like,
Yeah.
that's God, forgive me for praying and being so upset on why you had me on this journey. Where were you sending me? Because in that moment, he thumped me on the head and was like, you're here for that. You're just here to interject. Just be my conductor for me. I don't need
Yeah.
you to know everything. I don't need you to read every book. Don't beat
Nope.
yourself up because you don't got the degrees and you
Right.
think you're not worthy. Just be my conductor for me. And that
That's
was
right.
that moment. So I think for a lot of people, wherever you're at or however you're seeing the narrative, don't think that you're not worthy to talk about things, first of all, but two, don't be afraid to look at the industry and the world that you're giving your energy to, because if you want the world and everything to be, everything we want for our children, it starts at the ground floor now. And where you give your energy, your attention to, should be truth and light. It should be everything that you can, you believe in, so to speak. It's, I come from a long generation of salesmen, and that's something my grandfather always told me is, don't ever sell anything you don't believe in. You have a really hard time, and it's
Amen.
100% true.
Mhm.
You gotta believe in what you're doing. So if you're having some cognitive dissonance, if you're seeing something in your industry doesn't sit well, don't, maybe God put you in that place to be that little thorn in the side, or to ask that hard question, or to not go along to get along, and let other people see that there's somebody else willing to stand, somebody else willing to walk away, if you will. That still carries a lot of weight for a lot of people.
That's absolutely right. And man, I couldn't said it any better, Don Q. Man, I can't wait to bring you back on the show sometime again. I really want to pick your brain on, what when Trump's talking about the golden era and then how maybe that relates to agriculture and the food industry of our country, because, there's a lot of really brilliant people in our movement that are talking about how can we make the farm to fork model something that's sustainable and that we could be doing in all regions of the country instead of the top down, big corporate production, manufacturing facilities, storage, warehouse, distribution, trucks everywhere. Like, how do we like re-engineer that model to make it more localized, organic, and healthy and readily available, and integrate all the great things that the tools God's already given us. I can't wait to bring you back because I have so many questions, because I think you're the guy I can ask these questions to,
Yeah.
and just spitballing ideas. I mean, we don't have to have the answers to everything. It's like you being in that forum, right? You may not have the answers to that problem, but God put you there to plant a seed that later he was going to shine light on, and he was going to put water into, and to see what would grow. And that's amazing. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that, Don.
Yeah, no, and for anything else, or I hope the right person out there hears this, when they rewatch this. But just don't be afraid to give your perspective, to ask the question, to understand reality as best you can. And this doesn't come with a degree or a knowledge base. Your opinion matters. Your perspective matters. Somebody else needs to hear it. Somebody else needs to see it. And you just never know what you can get going in this thought process of somebody. Just like you said, that planting of the seed. That's a big part of my mission, anyways. Is just get it out there, plant that seed, and to make sure that it's tried and true. Make sure that I did my best I could to do the
Yep.
research and understand what I'm doing. And you're gonna get it wrong. We all get it wrong. There's a lot of deception and misinformation out there. That happens along the journey. Don't beat yourself up. Keep yourself going. God does not want you to live in fear. He doesn't want you to lose confidence in the eyes of evil. Stand tall, good soldier. Keep moving forward.
Amen. Well, Don, where can people find you? Where are you putting most of your posts up these days? Where do you want people to find you?
Most of my posts, I still do the Instagram thing. It seems to be just a place where I connected with a lot of people. So a lot of stuff there. I am on TikTok now. Finally, I got that ban released. And then obviously X is you know, X / Twitter used to be a really compartmentalized liberal thing. Now, now I call it the streets. It's the streets. It's rough and tumble. You're going to get a lot of different opinions. You're going to get a lot of different, information, misinformation. It's vulgar. It's violence. It's, X is definitely the big leagues. So, my content on there is a lot more pointed. I tend to be a lot more confrontational and trying to butt up against, the big accounts with big narratives. But, you know, to get a glimpse of my family and the journey I'm on agriculture, I definitely kind of morphed my Instagram into that, because the people on there, the people I've interacted with, my account's always been public. I've never gone private. And again, I have an alias, or rather a screen name that we go under and everything, but you're genuinely getting me. And that's the biggest thing I think people are realizing. And much like I said with you starting this podcast and how amazing that is just give people the organic feel that you're real. I'm a father of 5, raising 5 children in California. My wife doesn't work, so consider me the endangered species list on California, and we're doing it. And we're making,
Good.
we're making strides. We're putting away a little bit in the savings account. So some things along the journey that I've learned, playing against evil, living on the border, getting to see that whole mess and how that's shooken out, butting up against veterans and asking them, how they're able to do certain things, how they were able to swear oath, but now they're allowing illegals into our country. Just those little things, just the little moving and shaking is what you'll get from my page. But it's
Cool.
organic. It's, I've had a chance to grow. I've had a chance to, join big podcasts and things. And for some reason, God's put on my heart that, I still have a lot to learn. I still have a battle. I shifted a lot to the digital realm. I think a lot of us did in 2020. A lot of attention, a lot of focus, a lot of screen time doing research. And now God's put it on my heart to bring it into the physical world. So a lot of time now is spent out in the fields with farmers, with ranch managers, just having those hard conversations, talking about getting away from big pharma, big chemical, and hearing their reaction, hearing their stance. And, again, from the ground floor, I can contest every single farmer, every single ranch person I've talked to, they are on board for a healthier and better way. And they're willing to do it, and they're going to do it. They just need big pharma out of the way. They need to understand, how far down the road we've come, what that looks like going back. And it's going to take a lot of the American public. And it's something that we'll touch on in another episode.
Thank you so much for your time, jumping on today with your busy schedule. Folks, if you guys want to find more on Don and keep up with him, please check out all of his links down below to his social media handles. This is episode 2 of the Ultra MK podcast, and we are reversing the narrative. God bless you and have a wonderful day. See you later.
It's our obligation to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.